Alright, the chainsaws were out today and we made a beautiful mess for deer, as you can see behind me. Let me show you what we were up to. Alright, so here was the project for the day. So we got a bedding cut right on a swamp edge, and we got a small ridge running right up to the swamp. So perfect location for a bedding cut, because I always like to put these bedding cuts where either the topography works well for the deer or where we got two habitat types that meet, and we had both in this one. So it was a very nice location to bust out the chainsaws and get some food on the ground for the deer, and also create habitat for the deer. So what we were working with today was mainly basswood, ironwood, maple, and as you can see, we got some oaks up in the canopy here that we released. So a lot of low value timber. This property is going to get logged, but here there was nothing that was really marketable, and it's kind of off the beaten path. The loggers are going to be working out that direction, so this was a perfect spot to do our own work and get this bedding location cut in. So one of my favorite features of this bedding cut is the fact that we have a gradual southerly slope right here that's going to set up really well for bedding structure for deer. So what we did is, on the north face, we just trashed it. We dropped everything out that way. It's steeper, so it doesn't really set up well for finding spots to make deer beds. But the southerly exposure is kind of a gradual slide down into a really nice flat bottom right there. So we still dropped our trees out that way, but we have tons of these little pockets that we made where the deer are going to be able to bed. So actually right here, I see this a lot where I got a bigger tree and there's kind of a rise right there. So I wanted to make sure that I cleared that spot for a deer bed. And then of course, easy in and out to get into the bed. But as we get down into this spot, you can see there's pockets working all over through this cut. I mean, we go this direction, big down structure. That's what we're always looking for when we want to make some of these beds. It's nice to have a backstop for the deer to bed up against. So they have that cover from to the back right there, but they also have a nice room with a view. So southerly exposure, we got a hole in the canopy up there, room with a view. They can scent check behind them when we got a northwest wind. It's going to be blowing right over their back, and they can watch out over the flat bottom down there. So it was a lot more work having all these big trees here, but I like the fact that the trees, these bigger trees, were in here, because they do give us great bedding structure. So this was a spot where you can see just the trunk stayed propped up. So I made sure to cut a hole out here, because this would be a spot I think a deer would like to bed. But then again, we had a lot of stuff down here, but I got my escape working out that direction, as well as another escape floating through right over there. If I get further, you can see I didn't just cut it out to the flat bottom. I did slightly, but I wrapped it right around here, made sure that there was another spot where we could use all this down structure to create bedding. So you can see there, I got a big old hole punched going through these treetops right here. Now these trees were, again, low value timber, but they were not the type of timber that really hinge well. We probably have maybe 10 hinge cuts throughout this entire cut. So just because hinge cutting is a great tool doesn't mean that it's always the tool that you can use when you're cutting trees. And in this case, there was really not much that was going to hinge well here. Hard maple don't hinge very well. The basswood we were working with were bigger, so they don't hinge well. Ironwood, very marginal. You can get a few to live. And then I think we had a couple of elm mixed in here. Those do hinge well, so we hinged a few of those. But the big goal today was to get these trees down to get these holes and pockets cut into them. We can get sunlight to the ground and we can get maximum regeneration on this hilltop. All right, so here's another pocket we got. Again, southerly exposure. I like having these down trees where we can cut holes underneath them. These will stay propped up for years, but they add some nice structure. Those are spots here that they just kind of hone in on them. Now again, when it's chop and drop, you know, when you have a little of this overhead stuff, some of it might settle, but I check all my bedding cuts every year. It's good to just walk into your bedding locations every year, make sure no treetops have fallen, created any dead ends, or there's any settling that created any dead ends. You want the deer to have as much freedom to move around as possible, so it's good to just bring the saw with you, burn up 1 tank of gas every year, and make sure that your bedding cuts are open and easy for the deer to access. All right, so here's that main ridge that we kind of focused on, and we made sure to leave this wide open all the way to the end right there, and then we got trails cutting off to the side, and we even have jump offs on our northerly exposure. You can see this was much steeper on the north side, so it really didn't set up well for bedding anyway, but I did make sure to leave a few jump off trails so they can get off this top. But what's going to happen with that massive hole that we have in the canopy, we are going to get some fantastic regeneration. You can see right over here, there must have been a fallen tree or something, because this hilltop is starting to regenerate a little bit. We actually have a little bit of browse up here, and no shocker, the little bit of browse we have is getting smashed by the deer. But now, with that big old hole in the canopy, this hilltop is going to become a viable cover for the deer and also a great food source. Alright, so here's that last trail that we made. Again, a marsh right off to the side right here. There is a jump that goes right down to the marsh right there. We made sure to turn this traffic that direction because what we have over there will be a rut stand. So that hunter can sit and be on the downwind side of the bedding, so when those bucks come and they're cruising that downwind side of the bedding on those northwest winds, he's going to be sitting there and ready to intercept them. Now that's going to be a morning sit only, but could be a very, very fun spot when the rut is rolling here in Minnesota. So that was the project for today. Felt good to bust the saw out again. Haven't really ran a chainsaw for about a month and a half, but the temps finally turned here in Minnesota, so it was a great day to get out and get some habitat on the ground. All right, y'all take care. God bless.